Hi guys, my name is Sumrit and welcome to the Cityscope Studio. And today we have new Dellily here in the studio. So she's one of the few Hong Konger who's doing a YouTube channel with all Chinese content and one of the first minority doing this. So New Delhi, welcome to our
Thank you.
studio. So tell us about yourself. What is your background?
So I was born and brought up in Hong Kong. Went to a local school for as long, from primary to secondary, and then even did uni here.
Right.
So I would say Hong Kong is my home.
Hong Kong is your home.
Yeah.
So you started YouTube channel called New Dellily, Dellily, right?
Yeah.
It's been like almost a year.
Yeah, almost a year.
Almost a year. So what motivated you to start this?
I think I would say my friends around me, for sure. So because all my friends around me are local people, so since when I was growing up, there were a lot of questions about Indian culture or how I live my life, my lifestyle, and they were always so curious. So my friends actually motivated me that why don't you start a YouTube channel, and there's so many misconceptions about India or about other places as well, then why don't you just kind of be a representative and use your own way to remove the misconceptions or educate them about our culture as well. So I was like, okay, and when I started, it was very exciting to see how many people in Hong Kong are actually interested in it, and just started from there.
So you like what you're doing? Definitely.
I love what I'm doing.
So what are main topics you talk about? Like you talk about misconceptions, because like definitely a lot of misconceptions about Indians and South Asians in Hong Kong. So what are the main topics you talk about in your channel?
So there's a lot. Sometimes I talk about my lifestyle, which doesn't do that well.
Right.
But when I talk about Indian culture, people go crazy.
They get curious about
yes.
it, right?
So there's a lot of misconceptions, like they think all we eat at home is curry. So that was one of the things that I did a short video about. And then there's, I remember when there's the virus going on, there was a lot of Chinese articles in Hong Kong that were covering that people in India drink cow pee.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and then I had to do a video about that, explaining that that's not what everyone does.
Right.
Because every time someone reads something on the news, they just think that that's what that country does. So there's also a video about rape. So everyone just thinks that India is all about rape in Hong Kong. So it's not safe to go. You should just not go. And they always ask me whenever I go back to India, they're like, is it okay for you to leave your house? And I was like, that's not as extreme as it seems in the news. You need to know about the culture. You need to know that you can't just distinguish that that's how the country is. There's so many beautiful things about our culture. And there's also, there's a lot of people that ask, about dowry. Like in India, it's famous that,
the woman to pay.
Yes.
Right.
So there's that as well. And then there was also a video about arranged marriage. So I just put my dad and mom in, and I was like, explain about this.
Oh, so what inspired you? Like, where do you get all these topics from? Is it like people comment on it, or like we just blink, this is one of the misconceptions? Where does it come from?
So usually there's a lot of people that comment. They say, can you talk about how to order Indian food, or can you talk about what do you eat at home, or my friends sometimes will be like, so the arranged marriage video, it just came out of nowhere. It was, I think, a week ago before I shot the video. My friend was just like, how did your parents meet? And I was like, ooh, good question. And then it just clicked, and I was like, okay, mom and dad, you're doing this. So it's all from like inspiration from outside, or sometimes I'll watch other YouTube videos from India, or it will just click on my head just talking to different people and seeing what they're interested in as well.
So your YouTube channel is called New Dellily, right? Why is it New Dellily? Are you from New Delhi, or what is the reason?
So 90% of my family lives in New Delhi.
Okay.
So whenever I go back to India, that's the only place I go to.
Right. So
mainly.
Okay,
yeah.
New Delhi.
Yeah.
Alright.
And then also it kind of relates back to my personal name, which ends with Lee. So I just wanted to have like a personal touch as well.
So your channel is mostly more talk about like how to define the misconception about ethnic minorities, right? So what do you think is like the biggest misconceptions for the minorities in Hong Kong, especially for Indian and South Asians?
I think it's a lot to do with our lifestyle. Like a lot of people might think that the first thing people would think as a woman, I don't get I don't get rights, or I'm not treated fairly at my house, or a lot of Indian women in Hong Kong, there's a lot of restrictions to them, and that is completely not true. Like, I dress the way I want, I say what I want, I can do what I want. Obviously, also I respect my parents and I listen to them. But then a lot of my friends would sometimes be like, oh, are you allowed to go out this late, or can you do this, can you do that? And it's not, it kind of makes them, because of how the news or the media would make it sound like, it kind of makes them feel that we have certain restrictions, and that's not true. Like we do, there's I think a lot of men in India respect women, and that is completely true, but there's a lot of misconception about that you know, I would like to clear. And also showing that, you know, like we work, we study, we do all the things that we want to do. It's not, you know, it's not how the news, if there's one report, two report, that's not how everyone is.
Right.
So that's also one of the things misconceptions I get a lot. Like I get asked a lot about my lifestyle, or, you know, they would say that, shouldn't you be married, or stuff like that. Obviously, Indian traditional parents, they would say that it's time to get married, but it's not like I'm getting, you know, forced to do anything that I don't want to as well.
So why do you think like so many misconceptions? Is it because of the awareness, or is it the education system? Like what do you think is wrong, or what do you think is make the local people have so many misconceptions? What do you think about that?
I think the main thing is language barrier.
Language barriers.
For sure. So the news, the media, it's always in Cantonese, it's always in Chinese that reports, you know, all these things that are happening in India. But then they don't report a lot of times they miss the good things. They don't miss that, you know, how many people in India fighting for rights, and how many people are succeeding. Or, you know, for example, a lot of people in Hong Kong actually didn't even know that gay rights is legal in India. They always think that, oh, really? But it's such a traditional place. How can they really allow it? And then I'm like, yeah, it's been allowed for a few years now. But these good things are not reported on the news, or a lot of people don't show these things about how India is progressing. So I think it's definitely the language barrier. For sure, I wanted to, you know, use my channel and speak in the language that people would understand or like to listen to, and clear the misconception.
Because like when I watch a video, I love those videos. It's like you have on these thumbnails, it's like really graphic, and people love it. Like local people, they love this kind of stuff. And that's really one thing you do really good about.
Thank you.
So like you would call yourself as a Hong Konger. So what do you think makes one as a Hong Konger?
I think a lot of people ask me that. They always ask me that when you were growing up, did you ever have like identity crisis? Because you're brown, but then you live in Hong Kong. Yeah, and to be honest, I've met a lot of, you know, Indians living in Hong Kong, and they all distinguish themselves as a Hong Konger. Like, you're born and brought up here, you're most familiar with here than, like, I'm more familiar with everything in Hong Kong than if I go back to India. And I would just say that it's where I studied, it's where my family, like my dad, my mom, my brother are, and it's just everything, like my friends, my work, everything is here. So it just makes me feel like this is my home, and I understand it most, and I feel most comfortable here.
So you do have like identity crisis?
I did have it when I was growing up, because I was the only brown kid in like a local school. So I always, I remember when I was growing up, I would have it in my head that yes, I'm Indian. But you know, like, I don't think you can say you're just a Hong Konger. You can say I'm Indian, but I'm also a Hong Konger.
Like Indian.
But I think it's just, this place makes me feel like home. Like, I'm most familiar with it. I'm just most comfortable with it. So
it's like right now I'm telling you go back to Delhi and live.
Yeah.
It's really difficult, right? Like it's gonna be really different, because personally I was in India, working in India for a few months. Yeah. I couldn't cope with it. Like it was like, yo, home is home, right?
Yes.
Hong Kong is, the language is good. Maybe we know the language is one of the main barrier broke, right?
Yeah.
But when I went to India, it's really different at first.
Yeah.
So it's good. So what you're doing is, again, like trying to defy the misconception, and there's a lot of EM, minority youth in Hong Kong, right? So what do you think like they should step up? Because you have used one of the way, which is using like TV channel, like YouTube channel, sorry, like social media to like find that niche to actually talk about yourself and like about culture to other people. What would you advise like a lot of EM youth? Like what should they do if they have one thing they want to do? What would you advise them?
I think, honestly, I think a lot of EM youth here are actually very friendly, and they're very open. Like, they're willing to share about their experience if you go ahead and talk to them. But again, I think it's only the language barrier that causes the problem here. So I wouldn't say force yourself to learn Cantonese, but I think, you know, knowing a little bit of Cantonese always helps. But then also in the meantime, like, just being yourself. Like, don't be afraid to be, you know, an EM. Like, be proud of who you are, be happy in your own skin. Just, I know there's a lot of EMs that feel like, oh yeah, when we were growing up we got bullied, or like, you know, we shouldn't be the way we are, we should change ourselves. But not at all. Like, you know, just accept yourself and people will accept you. I think that's the only advice I would like to give.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So thank you, New Dellily. It's a really short interview, but it's a good podcast. I'm gonna partner with you in the future for a lot of different things, hopefully. So follow her Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. New Dellily will be on the caption. And thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.